welcome to Everyday Petrolhead. I'm Terrence Anderson and welcome to my page. Why did I create this page? I am an avid car lover. I love everything about cars. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what kind of car. Well, except for smart cars and, well, nobody really likes Prius, let's be honest. But if it's got an engine, electrical, or gasoline driven, I love it. Doesn't really matter. The page will primarily cover things related to my trials and tribulations with my recent acquisition of a 2006 BMW X5 4.4 V8 E53 body. I have to say I love this car. It's amazing. It drives well, has a fair amount of power. Honestly, I don't think I need more power. That's a lie. You always need more power. And I don't really have too many complaints about it. Now, the circumstances behind why I purchased the car, that's a whole nother story. You know, my wife and I needed a second vehicle that had space for the kids, and we did receive one from a friend, and we appreciated it. However, when our other car that seems to have issues periodically decided it wanted to act up and we were out of sorts for a while, we basically couldn't squeeze our entire family into the other vehicle. Hence, this came into my life. If I was to sit here and say that I went into this wholeheartedly knowing all the possibilities of things that could happen with a BMW, I would be lying to you. BMW reliability is an actual thing, and I've learned the hard way what that really means. Luckily, I'm skilled enough and willing to do research on how to repair anything as it's come so far. So I got this X5 for roughly $5,700, and at that price point with about roughly 100,000 miles on it, you already know it's got some issues. At first we seemed fine with it, however, At first we seemed fine with it, but certain things kept coming back and back and back. And I realized that, one, never purchase a vehicle without a pre-purchase inspection. That was definitely my fault. I know people are going to write all sorts of crap in the comments saying, duh, you should have done that. Well, you know, I was new to the BMW game. Before this, I've always purchased my cars at dealerships like Ford or Chevy or wherever, where all of that was already done. All the stuff was sorted out. This was actually the first, well, I'm lying here, second vehicle that I've purchased at a side dealership of some sort. And overall, the purchasing experience was good. Information was not as forthcoming as I would have liked. And I swear their mechanic was planning for me to be bringing the car back to him over and over and over, as you shall learn from my first set of experiences with this car. So what have we replaced and repaired on this car so far? Well, first things first, the car was having problems where it constantly squealed. I couldn't figure out why it was squealing. It was driving me and my wife nuts. The car would be heated up and it would still squeal, so we said, you know what, let's change all of the pulleys. Maybe that will solve it. Maybe it's the belt. Fine. Change the belt, change the pulleys. Car popped the first new belt. Thank God I got a warranty on the belt, so I got a new belt from Pep Boys. Always get the warranty. And the next time I drove it, I was on the way home from class, from night school, which is where I'm heading right now, and the belt popped getting onto the 101 to the 405, and I lost power. Didn't have any power steering. I didn't know what was going on at first. It was a cold day. That's the only reason I could even get that far, mind you, before needing to get it towed home. But we got there and, you know, got it towed home. When we got it home, we realized although the tensioner pulley seemed to be there, there seemed to be one missing, the idler pulley. So when they took care of this car, when they got it in from the auction, they replaced the alternator on the car, and the idler pulley sits on top of the alternator. This pulley was missing, causing the belt to have slack, constant slack that I didn't even realize, and robbing the car of power in the process, which I also didn't realize. And I had to buy an idler pulley and put it on, which transformed the car dramatically once I actually did that, which kind of surprised me. So that was the first thing. In the process of this car overheating, I learned very much about BMW's love of plastic. The radiator is a metal radiator, but the side housing on both sides of the radiator are all plastic. And the cost of replacing that radiator from BMW was astronomical. I didn't even bother with going with their idea. I called up my trusty guys over at Pep Boys, got a replacement for $200, and my wife and I put it in. Yes, my awesome wife and I put it in. And it wasn't really as hard as I thought it was going to be. I actually looked up online. This is one of the few cars that has so much information on how to repair it that it's unbelievable. So whenever you're going to go buy a car, boys and girls, make sure you look up and see how many forms are online, or forums online for that matter, showcasing information on it and any periodicals that will help you repair anything on this car. I actually found an amazing one. I'll put it in the description, and it showcased how to replace pretty much everything on my car, which is beyond glorious. I've also found that most of the aftermarket parts for BMW parts seem to, in many cases, be better than the original. So after we replaced the radiator and replaced the pulley, now what's left is we were dealing with a slight oil leak. I learned that there's a little rubber seal at $6 that I need to replace. That I'll take care of the small leak, and that takes care of that. There are like one or two other little things that came up last year, but overall, I've talked to friends to see how much their, cost of maintenance for a year of a BMW. Mind you, these are people who go to mechanics because they don't know how to do the repairs themselves, and they were saying that they ran them several $1,000s. But what benefited me was, one, having the tools, two, the knowledge to know how to repair my vehicle myself, which is awesome. Three, the willingness to look up the information that I needed to do the repairs. And four, the fact that my car was mostly built in America. Yes, my German beast was built in America in partnership with Range Rover. So a lot of the parts are sourced here in America. What's so funny about this is last year we had some repairs on the Ford Explorer that my wife owns, and we spent $1,200 in repairs on the Ford, and my total cost of repairs for last year for this car was $600. That's including brakes. And the story's even more interesting when it comes to changing tires. I mean, we spent $600 on tires on mine, $800 on hers. Go figure. You'd think the American car would be cheaper. I started actually looking at some of the parts we replaced on her car and comparing it to my car, and almost every single part was cheaper on my car. The only two things on this car that cost more than everything else is the engine and the transmission, which I need to take care of meticulously. The transmission, although BMW says has a lifetime fluid guarantee, you don't have to change the fluid or the filter. That is total BS. I'll be changing the oil filter sometime later this year and replacing the oil fluid, having it completely flushed and having the mechatronic system fully looked at and inspected. There's also this little plastic seal near the mechatronic that apparently, if it goes, can easily damage your entire engine. So yes, that $10 part is very important to replace, and I'm going to replace it one time when I get it done. The other issue is the infamous N62 V8 engine valve stem seal problem. Now, many people will make you believe that only BMWs have this valve stem seal issue. Yes, they do have this issue, mainly because many BMW drivers drive crazy. Present company slightly included. I love driving my car. What do you want me to do? The cars will develop an issue where they may smoke because oil gets past the valve stem seal and into the combustion chamber, and the engine will burn the oil and smoke will come out the back of your exhaust. Now, some people will let this go for far too long, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and by the time you look around, you need a brand new engine. I've been maintaining the issue. It happens primarily when the car sits idling for far too long in traffic, like it's probably going to do it today because somebody had a car accident in one of the canyons and we have to take a different route to get where we're going. This issue can be resolved a couple of different ways. I called up the BMW mechanics and asked them how much would it cost to replace the valve stem seals, and after a bunch of gibberish and long-winded nonsense, they gave me a quote of $7,000 to $10,000. I did not pay $7,000 to $10,000 for this car. So no, we will not be going that road to fix this. Independent mechanics have given me quotes as high as $4,000 to $5,000. And I've talked to a couple of people who I know who are huge into the BMW world, and several of them have said that, you know, find the right mechanic, you can get it for a reasonable price. And I actually found a mechanic in North Hollywood who is going to take care of it at a later date, because right now it's not as bad as I thought it was, because I got scared when people told me about this issue. It's not as bad as I thought it was. So I can actually get this done for a fairly reasonable price. And reasonable for me is anything below $2,500. Will I do it today? No. Do I need to do it today? Not really. But will I need to do it in the future? Most likely. And I can also rent the tool to do the valve stem seals myself, which is roughly $300 give or take for the tool, and of course the air pump and everything else. But I also have to be meticulous, take my time, and do the repair myself without taking any time to do anything else. That means I'm gonna have to take a couple of days off and focus. I might even consider doing that, because ever since I've been tinkering around with this vehicle, I haven't been as scared to do that anymore. Valve stem seals on average for most cars, you know, last anywhere from 150 to 200,000 miles, maybe even longer, depending on how you drive it. But because most BMWs are driven hard, and they like being driven hard, you know, you're gonna wear it out. It's just one of those things. It's a rubber seal, or some I think are silicone based. It has to be replaced. The first set of E53s from 2001 to 2005, their issue with the valve stem seal problem was more substantial than mine, which is a 2006 facelifted model, which means after they've made some adjustments. Mine, the seals are supposed to last, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200,000 plus miles. I'm at about 121,000. I'm not gonna wait till it gets that far, but suffice to say, I will get it done. And it's not really an expensive part, it's the labor. There's so many components that have to come out of the engine bay just so you can get to the actual part, and that's the reason why the price goes up so much. So I'm still debating which way I'm gonna go, but at least I know the mechanic in North Hollywood, who's pretty awesome. He's my backup on the scenario, and I will probably go to him once we decide whether we're gonna go down the road or if I'm gonna take 2 or 3 days off, tear my car apart and do it myself. Speaking of the valve stem seals scenario, it's not just BMW, like I said, that has this issue. Pretty much every modern car has valve stem seals, and they wear out at various times, but most of them are designed to last a fair amount of time. So something to monitor depending on your driving styles. If you drive cars a lot harder than usual, you're probably, chances are, going to have to deal with it. The German reliability when it comes to electrical components, man, well, stereo is a little batty. The BMW system that I got with this car came with the DPS system, which was an interesting experience learning that the stereo in the front is not the stereo. Rather, the stereo in the front is simply a head unit screen that has a cassette deck in it that talks to the actual stereo, which is in the trunk next to the amplifier, next to the battery, underneath the air pump for the air suspension. Why was this chosen? I have no idea. Suffice to say, my stereo is in four places. The head unit in the front, the actual stereo in the trunk, the amp that pushes the sound to the 12-speaker sound system, and the CD player changer, I should say the CD changer that is in the sidewall on the left side. All failure points across the board. So the solution is, at some point, I'll be replacing the stereo with an Android head unit that connects to the amplifier, so I don't have to replace the speakers, because the speakers actually work well when the stereo wants to work properly. Which is most of the time. Since I've worked out many of the electrical issues, a lot of the problems I've found with the stereo, I haven't really had too many times since. So We'll see, but I'm definitely leaning toward doing that. And again, that's still not an expensive issue. The screen on the stereo, however, is another story. It's got its fair share of issues. It's a known thing that these pixels go out on the screen, and I could replace the screen, but again, because the car was used, whoever previously had their hands on it decided to remove the GPS antenna, and I don't really feel like trying to figure out what wire goes where. I'm just going to take the whole system out and put in a new one. It just makes more sense. The right HID headlight went out, which I again called up BMW to ask them how much that light would cost to replace, and their price was astronomical, $151 for a light bulb, which I understand it's high intensity discharge Xenon headlights. However, the product part is actually a Philips bulb that costs $54, and I can get it off of Amazon or another third-party parts distributor. I even called up the guys at my parts store near the house, and yeah, they gave me a price of $50 to $60 to replace it. So I'm considering just getting that part from them. On the upside, one of the things I do love about this car is how many alerts do I get, and boy, do you get alerts. The car's computer is constantly monitoring every single scenario, and the beautiful thing about that is it allows you to see and know what's going on at any given time with your vehicle, which is really, really, really helpful. I mean, I'm talking beyond helpful. But the main reason I bought this car is so that when I want to, I can get on the road and I can do a little bit of this. That always feels good, no matter what. The car's information states that it does 0 to 60 in roughly 6 seconds. I have to attest that it probably does it a little bit faster than that. The engine develops 320 horsepower with 315 foot-pound of torque, and it puts it down very well. Some people have said that I should consider supercharging it or turbocharging it. I don't think I need to do that. I think, if anything, I think I need to work on allowing the engine to breathe better. And that doesn't mean putting a cold air intake in this car, because I think those things are useless, but maybe a better filter and definitely a catback system of some sort. I don't really think I want to delete the resonators, so that might be something to consider, maybe doing something from the resonator back, because, you know, as much as I love the concept of making the car louder, I also don't like having my butt rumbled to death by removing the resonator and having the vibrations at various RPM levels to shake me to death. I don't really think that's necessary. Periodically, my kids are in the backseat of the car. They don't need that. And my wife loves driving my car. The last thing I want is for her to be like, this car is a nightmare. Why is it so damn loud? I don't need that. So, plus, I love the fact that it's kind of a sleeper. I mean, I haven't had any issues on the road. I can't knock on any wood, there's all plastic in here, but I haven't had any issues so far, and I like keeping it that way. So I like the idea of a sleeper scenario. I would love if there was a active exhaust system that I could put on this car, active mufflers where I can, you know, cutouts or whatever. That would be awesome, where I can make it loud when I want it to be loud, and it can be sensible when I'm driving with my family. So I think that's the way to go. Another thing I love about this car is fuel efficiency. Now, on paper, it says it does 13 city 21 highway, which is really not that good. It's decent for a SUV, but not really good in reality when it comes to fuel efficiency. That everybody goes after. Everybody's chasing fuel efficiency. They don't want to spend too much money on gas. Gas costs a lot. It is what it is. But I've gotten, on average, 15 to 16 miles to the gallon, which is really good. You know, and that's city driving. If it's just highway driving, I get 21s, 22s, even higher. On average, on a work week, when I'm not hammering it and driving like a crazy person or having way too much fun with my car, which is we're gonna keep that one to myself for now. I usually average about 18 miles to the gallon, which is really amazing. This morning I got 19 on the way to work, and I'm getting about 17 on the way back right now. That is awesome for me. You know, the car does constant recalculations. I've left from the gas station with 390 miles of range, and I've gotten to work with 410 miles of range. It essentially looks at the situation and recalculates almost immediately to say that you can go this much further as long as you drive like you have some sense. At the peak, I've gotten 450 miles to the tank, which is amazing. At the lows, about 360, and 360 is when I drive like a crazy person. It is what it is. It's BMW. We all know we do this. We all drive them a little hard, but they're fun. I have not had a car that's cornered as well as this one has. You know, the seats in this car are sports seats. That means they have the lumbar support. They also have the thigh rest support that you can pull out, which is really, really great. The lumbar support in this car just really pulls you in. I don't really slide around in this seat. Unlike my wife's truck, when I'm driving that truck, I basically knock around in the seat when we're in the canyons because there's no support. You just slide around. And she drives this car probably the same as I do. And I'm almost positive. I could probably put a camera in here and track her motions. I'm sure she's having a lot of fun when she drives it because she loves this car too. Would I say buy a BMW again? Yes. I would absolutely say buy a BMW again. Reason being is if you take the time to learn how to deal with the problems and you do the research and you do the pre-purchase inspection, which I will do with the next one, you can find an amazing vehicle at a reasonable price that you don't really have to worry about. And as long as you maintain it and you're willing to do some of the work yourself or find a reputable mechanic that's not going to gouge you, perfect. I mean, going back to the valve stem thing, it's a $300 part that for some reason costs $7,000 to put in. Someone explained to me how that's possible at $70 to $100 an hour in labor for 2 days. That's not adding up to that. That's just not adding up to that. And let's be honest, he's not sitting there in my engine bay for the entire day like that for a couple of days. I don't see that happening. That's my thoughts on that. Thank you for taking time to get to know who I am, and if you enjoyed it, like, share, and subscribe. Let me know any topics you want to talk about. We're not just going to cover my car, but I want to talk about every car. Anything we could think of, experiences, and things that people don't normally understand or see when it comes to your everyday petrolhead. Thanks.